We had a thriller in Sin City, another nail biter in DC. We've got Stanley Cup playoff action to talk about right now on Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hey, hockey fans, welcome to Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place to get a recap of the night in the NHL. We're available 7 days a week wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Eddie Garcia, an LA Kings fan on the West Coast. He is Shukri Wrights, a Boston Bruins fan on the East Coast. And together with our local experts as well, we're here to discuss all the goals, saves, big moments, and stories from the night in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Shu, we're into round number 2. This is our first show into round number 2, and it's just as exciting as ever.
And it did not lack in any sort of overtime or late game dramatics. And now we continue into round number 2, where it's more of the same or more of the big name stepping up.
Well, we will start with a late night thriller out west in Sin City. The Golden Knights hosting the Edmonton Oilers in game 2 of their series. The Pacific Division champs taking on the third place team in the Pacific. The Oilers took game 1 on the road 4-2. Game 2 was a wild one. 4 goals in the second period, 3 more in the third. And in the end, this one decided in overtime where Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, who had no points going into OT, team up on the game winner for a big 5-4 victory. Let's get a report from the winning side. We check in with a host of Locked On Oilers.
Edmonton Oilers didn't quite steal one, but some would say they didn't deserve that win. Nick Sararis of Locked On Oilers here after the Oilers' 5-4 overtime victory in Game 2 against the Vegas Golden Knights. And the story of this game will be the highly climactic overtime that featured a major penalty by Nick Waugh, who got a 5-minute major, and the Golden Knights killed that off. There were 2 times in the overtime period. Once where I believe it was Brett Kulak, high stick Jack Eichel, and that didn't get called around the net front. And then the sequence leading up to the game-winning goal, Braden McNabb and Victor Arvidsson going into the corner. Arvidsson stick between the legs, McNabb going shoulder first, likely dislocating his shoulder, leaving the game. No call on that play. The Oilers come down in the ensuing sequence, and McDavid finds Draisaitl, who had neither player had been on the score sheet to that point in a 4-4 game. The Oilers now with a 2-0 series lead going back to Edmonton. That game will be Saturday night, hockey night in Canada. The Oilers will have a chance to move to the precipice of advancing, and they've played 2 decent games on the road against a really good Vegas team. If you're an Oilers fan, you should be excited for this upcoming weekend. For all of that and everything you need to know about the Edmonton Oilers Stanley Cup playoff run, be sure to check out Locked On Oilers wherever you get your podcasts or over on YouTube.
And thanks to Nick Sararis, your host of Locked On Oilers, for that report. Shu, I mean, Vegas missed opportunity here. We're going to hear from the host of Locked On Golden Knights in a moment, but they scored 2 goals in the third, the tied up, forced overtime, came out really strong on the OT, and then Nick Waugh, as you heard, the cross-check to Trent Frederick. Now, they kill off the 5-minute major, which was amazing, but it seemed like that's kind of sucked the life out of them as well. They weren't the same team after that. They don't get a call late in the game, but then it was Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. You can only hold those 2 monsters out for so long before they're finally going to be heard. They team up on the game winner, McDavid to Draisaitl, a wide open net to put it in, and he's not going to miss. He's an assassin. Draisaitl ends it, but this was, to me, I think it was, if you're an Oilers fan, you're obviously thrilled. You get 2 on the road. That's huge, but I thought the Golden Knights had a big opportunity here. They let slip through their fingers.
I want to start with the Oilers side of things first before we turn it over to the Golden Knights outside of the ledger, and for good reason, because one thing I I think one of the things that's going to be really important to look back on in terms of game number 2 for the Oilers is the fact that number one, you blew a 2-goal period lead. And I'm going to focus on the negative here because yes, the Oilers have been rolling. They've won 6 in a row, but the truth is, it shouldn't have gotten to this point. But be it as it may, the Oilers continue to show you why this team is so dangerous in this playoff because they continue to find ways to win. And I want to go back to the fact that they fell behind 1-0 early on, but them scoring the 3 straight second period goals by Jake Wallman, Vasily Colson, and then as well as Darnell Nurse showed you yet again the depth of the Edmonton Oilers and why this team is so dangerous offensively. And I think that you saw that again tonight in what has been a pretty torrid stretch for this Oilers team offensively, where they have scored 29 goals in their 6 consecutive wins. But here's the scary part, Eddie. Guess how many goals Connor McDavid has in this stretch? Only one. And he had the assist on the Leon Draisaitl game winner in overtime. And I just want to say that in terms of the Oilers, man, like they really got fortunate there. You know, like even though they were not able to capitalize on that 5-minute major penalty that they had in OT, but they continue to show and find different ways to win, especially getting the big play and getting the big goal from your big guns, especially like in key situations in games.
Yeah, I mean, they did give up the 2 late goals in the third, but as you said, the depth scoring continues to be there for Edmonton. And anytime you can win a game, and I know the 2 big guns came up big when it mattered most in the overtime, but it was everybody else that got him there. Calvin Pickard, by the way, we should point out, their number 2 goalie. I mean, he wasn't great, but he's also their number 2 goalie. I mean, he's hanging in there. He's making saves. And for them to be successful with him in net, obviously is pretty big. But the controversy in overtime, Victor Arvidsson, as you heard Nick Zararis talk about, gets the stick between the legs of Braden McNabb. He goes shoulder first hard on the boards. He gets injured. No call. Vegas should have had a power play, but they don't get the breaks in this one. It was a big comeback by them. Huge penalty kill on the 5-minute major. But in the end, they're down 0-2, now heading north of the border. Let's get a report on the Golden Knights from one of their co-hosts of Locked On Golden Knights.
There's a lot to unpack after that game. The Edmonton Oilers survive a late push from the Vegas Golden Knights and win in overtime 5-4. Drama, major penalty, missed penalties, great comeback, awesome overtime, good goaltending duel even in a 9-goal game. Don't know where to start, nor do I know where to end, but the Golden Knights now trail the Edmonton Oilers 2-0 in round 2 of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. Myself and Tony Cordasco will unpack this game and so much more in Friday's edition of Locked On Vegas Golden Knights. You can catch that on YouTube and anywhere you catch your podcast. Your team every day.
And thanks to seemed like a worn out Chris Golick from
Exhausted.
Locked On Golden Knights. I don't blame him. But Vegas, they still need some of their guys to step up. Jack Eichel, Mark Stone, they're not saying they didn't play well, but they did not get the puck in the net in this one. Tomas Hertl, they're still playing without Pavel Dorofeyev, one of their top scorers during the regular season. So maybe they get him back. Maybe that helps him out, but Vegas is in deep trouble. Going now north of the border, down 2-0, and Edmonton hasn't lost yet on home ice, 3-0 so far this postseason. They better hope they can get a win in game 3. I know that they were right there in game number 2. It's not like the Oilers are dominating this series, but they've made it pretty tough on themselves going now to Edmonton.
Oh, absolutely. And, like the Golden Knights not having on Dorofeyev in tonight's game was definitely a blow. But however, one of the few bright spots for the Golden Knights, in my opinion, in this game was seeing Olofsson, who scored his first 2 career playoff goals in this game. And I think that seeing someone being able to step up in terms of losing a big part of your offense was really important. But however, in terms of the bigger picture, and I agree, them losing the first 2 games at home for the Golden Knights didn't help matters at all. And now with the series shifting to Edmonton, I think one of the things that is going to be really imperative for the Golden Knights to in order to survive in this series is to avoid the penalties, but especially the major penalty that they had committed tonight. You see, tonight's 5-minute major, it reminded me of the one that was called against Cody Eakin 6 years ago. If you remember that one, that was in Game 7 against San Jose. That was by far their worst playoff loss in their short franchise's history. So for me, I think, having guys be able to step up huge in this lineup is going to be imperative for Vegas in order to win Game 3 on the road. But they're certainly going to have to continue to find ways to stay out of the penalty box against this Oilers team.
All right, Alexander Ovechkin and the Caps looking to even up their series against the Canes. That's next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. Hey, did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn your TV into a gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 to Avowed. It's as easy as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV shows from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and comparable controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, we had another game to talk about. This one, the first game of the night on the East Coast in the nation's capital in D.C., where the Capitals were taking on the Hurricanes. Game 2 of their series, top team in the East, the Metro Champs taking on the number 2 team in the Metro. Carolina dominated Game 1, yet only pulled out a 2-1 overtime win despite being the better team pretty much throughout. Still a great start to win the first game on the road. This one would also be very close. This one would see Washington play much better, but still tight, low scoring in the end. The Capitals hang on for a 3-1 win and even the series at 1-1. Let's get a report from our host of Locked On Capitals.
The Capitals get back in the series with a big win in game number 2. Hi, this is Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals. Well, the Capitals down the Canes by a score of 3-1. And it's interesting how winning a game like we saw tonight in game number 2 makes you forget a lot about what happened in game number 1. The Capitals were pouring on the pressure a lot more in this game, getting many more shots on net. 21 shots on goal versus the Carolina Hurricanes 28. And the Capitals doing tonight whatever it took to win the game. Blocking shots, huge. The Capitals blocked 33 shots versus the Carolina Hurricanes 10. Tom Wilson doing whatever it took to get the Capitals to win, taking this team on his back and carrying them across the finish line. He was involved physically. He was involved in blocking shots. He scored a goal tonight. Tom Wilson was key in the Capitals' win tonight. Other performers, Connor McMichael gets it all going for the Capitals. John Carlson finds twine as well. Logan Thompson, a beast in net for the Capitals. Again, I think the Capitals are starting to figure out the Carolina Hurricanes systems a little bit more. I'm pretty excited. The Capitals are feeling good after a big win. Let's hope they can keep it going in game number 3 on Saturday night. I'll have much more on Locked On Caps.
And thanks to Dan Holme, the host of Locked On Capitals, for that report. John Carlson, he mentioned power play goal early in the third. It would be the game winner. That was the first power play goal the Hurricanes have allowed this postseason. So good for the Caps to get a power play goal. Logan Thompson has been great. He's seen 61 shots through the first 2 games of the series. He stopped 58 of them. And Tom Wilson was an absolute beast in this game, hitting, blocking shots. He got the primary assist on that power play goal and the empty net goal to seal it. I mean, Ovechkin is Ovechkin, but this was Tom Wilson's night. And he absolutely led the Capitals to a huge win.
And I would agree with you in terms of like Tom Wilson really stepping up huge in this game, apart from the empty net goal that he scored to seal it for the Capitals. But I thought he really set the tone along with the rest of his teammates in terms of, getting to lose pucks first, winning those puck battles and as well as like really taking their game to another level because let's face it, in game number one, the Capitals, they just look absolutely flat. They were flat in game number one, and Carolina was really able to establish their game very early on, which they never relinquished through overtime. But in game number two, I thought the Capitals really ensured that they were going to establish the forecheck early. But even then, one of the things that really stood out to me in game number two for the Capitals is the fact that you saw John Carlson really step up huge in this game tonight. And I thought it was really important that, yes, puck luck plays a big factor into a lot of these games in the postseason, but the Capitals certainly had a pretty good share of that tonight. And if you talk about Tom Wilson having a big night for the Capitals, you also got to include like John Carlson, who really bounced back after a little bit of a lackluster performance in game number one. But man, it was really good to see the Capitals, find a way to establish their game against the Carolina Hurricanes, even though they themselves admitted that they didn't play their best game tonight. They didn't in comparison to game number one. But the Capitals being able to get back into the series as the series shifts to Carolina is huge.
And if you're a Caniac, happy you got the split. Now you come back home where you've been so good this season, 3-0 on home ice for Carolina so far this postseason. Let's get a report from their side of things from the host of Locked On Carolina Hurricanes.
The Carolina Hurricanes lose in Game 2, 3-1 to the Washington Capitals. Shane Gostisbehere did get a power play goal. You love to see it from the Hurricanes on that side of things. Unfortunately, their perfect penalty kill streak is now snapped due to John Carlson, so they're now 19 for 20 in the playoffs. Series is tied 1-1, coming back to Carolina with Game 3 on Saturday at Lenovo Center. The Hurricanes look to kind of bounce back from this game. They did play very well for the most part. It's just unfortunate Logan Thompson just stood tall once again. And, nothing much you can do when you give up a couple goals and then they score an empty netter. And other than that, it's just one of those nights where the Hurricanes tried, but puck didn't really go their way. But, outshot them, out-hit them once again. But it'll be very interesting to see what Game 3 holds on Saturday back in Raleigh.
So thanks to Zach Martin, the host of Locked On Carolina Hurricanes, for that. Frederik Andersen's been pretty good so far through 2 games, although Logan Thompson's been a bit busier, and so he's kind of grabbed the spotlight as far as that goes. But 2 very low-scoring games. Carolina wins the first one 2-1 in overtime, and obviously Washington gets a 3-1 win here in Game 2. Credit both goalies. I mentioned Carolina's been great at home. Washington, though, excellent on the road as well during the regular season. So 1-1 series. This one kind of feels like it's going to be low scoring throughout, and it could be a 7-gamer the way this one is heading so far.
I absolutely agree. I think it's going to be a pretty long series, at least 6 games. And my reasons are very simple. Number one, Carolina. This is a team that is very structurally sound, probably the most structurally sound team in the NHL in terms of Rod Brind'Amour, the head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, getting the guys on playing the way that he wants them to play. Tight checking, take away time and space. That was something that they did very well in game number 1 against the Capitals. And then as far as the Capitals are concerned, their game is not just Alexander Ovechkin providing the offense, is some of the young guys making a difference in this series, whether it be Eric Mangiapane or like Dylan Strome, for example. And I think that when you see some of the younger guys on this team step up, especially in tonight's game, I think it's going to be a bigger emphasis of point as the series shifts to Carolina and as the series goes deeper. And I do think that because of how tight this series is going to be defensively, that it's going to be a lot of low scoring, in my opinion. And so far, through the first 2 games, it has been very much indicative of that.
All right. Shukri writes, pick to win the Cup this year looking pretty good. We'll preview Leafs-Panthers Game 3. And Mikko Rantanen is absolutely on fire. We'll talk Stars-Jets Game 2. That's next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in on the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments? How could tracking their trends help you build your next big bet? What would it look like to combine a live prop bet mid-game based on how the action unfolds? If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with a same-game parlay? How could a $200 bonus in bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. All right, you coming up. We've got more amazing Stanley Cup playoff action on Friday with a pair of games, including Game 3 between the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's the Atlantic Division champs taking on the third seed in the Atlantic. Toronto leading the series 2-0, winning the first 2 games on home ice. They take game 1 5-4, take the second game 4-3, so it has been a tight series. No Anthony Stolar is on the trip down to Florida for Toronto. Got hit in the head in game 1 by Sam Bennett. Joseph Woll came in in relief in game 1, started game 2, has gotten the job done so far. So great for the Leafs to have a solid backup goalie to be able to turn to if necessary, which it has been. But Shu, talk to me about your Leafs. They were your pick to win the Cup before the playoffs. I was skeptical, but so far so good.
You know, one of the things that stood out to me about the Toronto Maple Leafs so far is that they have shown me a tremendous amount of maturity as an entirety of a team. Something that you just haven't seen in years past. Like, this was a team that was predicated on just skill or try to score more than the other team. That was their game. But with Craig Berube, and the thing that I really like what I've seen this postseason, which has really proven to me why I really do believe that the Toronto Maple Leafs are for real this postseason, is number one, goaltending. When was the last time that you looked at this Toronto Maple Leaf team and you said that, you know what, this team goaltending, I believe in it? I can't remember in the last 7-8 years, honestly. And with Anthony Stolarz and the way that he's performed this postseason prior to him getting injured by Sam Bennett in game number 1 of this series, I've always thought that Stolarz and Wall, that goaltending tandem that they have, is more than good enough to go on a prolonged playoff run. And so far, I've been proven right, especially through the first 2 games. And on the other side of it, in terms of the contribution that they're getting up and down the lineup, Max Pacioretty was absolutely huge in game number 2. And you talk about like William Nylander continuing to really be the guy who is absolutely calm, cool, and collected in high pressure mode, where Craig Brewer said after game number 1, nothing seems to phase this guy. So I do think that the Maple Leafs they have matured as a team. You're seeing the depth of this team, and you're seeing them make better decisions defensively in terms of how they're defending in their own end in front of whoever's in net, whether it be Stolarz or Wall. And that's something that has been really huge in terms of their success so far this postseason.
Yeah, Stolarz and Wall were certainly good during the regular season, but the question was, they had never done it in the postseason. Could they do it? So far, so good. As for the Florida Panthers, look, they're the defending champs. They've been there, done that. Back-to-back trips to the finals. I don't think losing 2 in a row, each game being 1 goal, they're not hitting the panic button yet. They're back on home ice. Obviously, it's a big game 3. You don't want to go down 3-0. But I'm not real concerned at this point about the Florida Panthers. I do think we need to see a little more Matthew Tkachuk being Matthew Tkachuk. He just has not really been a big factor in the first 2 games. He needs to be more engaged. He needs to be physically involved and doing the things he's known for, as well as producing, obviously. But just 1 assist through the first 2 games. He was a -2 in game number 2. And, you talk about the goaltending. We talked about who's your Conn Smythe Trophy leader after round 1. You said Sergei Bobrovsky. It hasn't been the edge that Florida has needed so far, I don't think, through first 2 games.
And it hasn't. You know what's funny, Eddie? That in terms of Sergei Bobrovsky, if you had to pinpoint one of the issues for the Panthers so far this series, Bobrovsky, which is really amazing to think that Bobrovsky has kind of rolled back the clock a little bit in comparison to like just 2 years ago, where the Bobrovsky was absolutely lights out against his Maple Leaf team. But so far, he has struggled, and I do think that the Panthers, they need more from Bobrovsky, especially if they're going to get back in the series in a big way. But then also, I think the fact that Matthew Tkachuk has been missing, it should be concerning a little bit. But I agree about not hitting the panic button, because there's no reason to say, oh my God, like what's going on with the Florida Panthers, defending Cup champions. They're going to be fine. I do believe that Paul Maurice will have them ready to go for the game number 3. But one last thing I will say is that, if anything else, you have to know and understand that this leadership core, this group, they've been in situations in the last 2 years. Being down 2-0 is not something that they're going to panic over. So I do think that it is something that they're going to have to do a better job defensively, and I think that they will in game number 3. But you definitely need to see better play from Aaron Ekblad, most particularly in game 3.
The other game coming up on Friday in Winnipeg, Jets hosting the Stars, game 2 of their series. That's the top team in the West, the President's Trophy winners, Central Division champs Winnipeg, against the number 3 team out of the Central. Stars with the 1-0 series lead, winning game 1 3-2. Dallas with the big road victory, and all 3 goals scored by my Conn Smythe Trophy winner I picked after the first round, Mikko Rantanen, with the natural hat trick in game 1. He's now leading the postseason with 8 goals and 15 points. He is giving the Dallas Stars exactly what they were looking for when they acquired him.
That and then some, because Mikko Rantanen has been the man. All in caps, man. I don't think I've ever seen anyone has ever seen a player have the type of offensive production that he has had in the last 3 games. It's just been jaw-dropping. And then you have back-to-back games where you have the hat trick. Come on. But I think one thing that's also impressed me the most is that, if you remember in round number 1 between the Stars and Avalanche, I was saying that at what point is he going to wake up? And if he gets going, watch out. And now here we are. We're like in awe of what he's doing on a nightly basis. And I think that the Jets, they're going to have their hands full in terms of trying to contain Mikko Rantanen during this series. I'm not saying that Rantanen's going to have a hat trick every night, because that's not possible or realistic. But I do think that when you ultimately look at how you're going to like try to slow down on the Dallas Stars, is that you're going to have to find a way, if you're the Winnipeg Jets, to do a better job defending against it. But also, you're going to need more from your middle 6 group as well, in terms of offensive production as well, outside of Rantanen.
And for the Winnipeg Jets, I would say Mikko Rantanen has stolen the spotlight a little bit away from Connor Hellebuck.
Yeah.
He wasn't awful in game 1. I thought 2 of the 3 goals he allowed were probably not stoppable, but the one he did allow was a rebound that he just didn't find. And when you're the Vezina Trophy winner to be, and when you're a Hart Trophy finalist, it can't just be, we hope he gives us a chance to win. He needs to be, at some point, if they're going to go deep, he's got to be the reason they win games. And he just has not been close to that at any point so far. Will he be around long enough to find his game and be able to be that guy? I would say that's very, very skeptical at this point.
I've reason to be skeptical to begin with. I was one of those people that made it publicly known that I don't believe in him, and I don't believe in the Winnipeg Jets. Now, I'm not saying that the series is over by any stretch of the imagination, but performances like game 1 makes you believe as to, hey, why, coming off of an emotional high in game 7 in a Manitoba Miracle against the St. Louis Blues, that they come out flat. The Jets came out flat in game number 1, and Hellebuck wasn't there to bail them out. And that is something that you want to see more of, in terms of him being able to bail out the team whenever they make the mistakes. So I do wonder if game 1 was just a prelude of what we're going to see in this series, coming off an emotional game 7 victory against St. Louis, or is kind of Hellebuck going to be able to find his game again come game number 2?
Well, we'll be here to wrap up those 2 games coming up on our next show. As for, again, on Thursday night, it was the Oilers in overtime over the Vegas Golden Knights to take a 2-0 series lead, and the Capitals edged the Hurricanes to even that series at 1-1. You got a taste of some of our local experts. Make sure you check out the Locked On show of your favorite NHL team to get all the latest news and reactions. I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Shukri Wrights. Thank you for listening and watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.